70 heads in baskets. An entire royal family completely wiped out in just a matter of days. It sounds like a movie, but today we're diving into the explainer for 2 Kings chapter 10. And let me tell you, this is absolutely one of the most intense, gripping historical narratives in the entire text. Welcome to the Partardez channel. Today we explain Prophet Kings 2 chapter 10 in a clear and simple way, step by step. So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll get a brief hook and context, then look at Ahab's 70 sons, the purging of his allies and relatives, the dramatic fall of Baal, Jehu's mixed legacy, and finally, we'll wrap up with some key lessons and a chapter recap. Let's get right into it. Section 1, Hook and Brief Context, Jehu's Divine Mandate. Okay, to really grasp what's happening in this chapter, we just need a tiny bit of context. Jehu has just been anointed as the brand new king of Israel, and he is on a very strict, highly specific mission from God: completely wipe out the entire house of Ahab. Why? Well, it's to avenge the blood of the Lord's prophets who Queen Jezebel had brutally massacred earlier on. Now, in the previous chapter, we saw the end of King Joram and Queen Jezebel, but Ahab's massive family and political influence, yeah, they are still deeply, deeply entrenched in the nation. And Jehu's takeover? It wasn't just some random act of violence. It was a highly methodical, chronological campaign. We're going to follow his path, starting from Jezreel on day 1, moving on to target relatives at Beth Akid on day 2, and finally striking the Baal worshippers at the temple on day 3. As we go through this, you're literally going to see a masterclass in military strategy, psychological warfare, and overwhelming zeal. Section 2, Ahab's 70 sons, covering verses 1 through 11. Right off the bat, the first major hurdle Jehu faces is that while he controls the city of Jezreel, the capital city, Samaria is heavily fortified. And guess who's inside? 70 sons of the house of Ahab. These royal princes are being raised and protected by the leading men of the city. We're talking palace administrators, city elders, and guardians whose sole job is to protect this royal bloodline. Now, Jehu is smart. He knows that laying siege to a massive, walled city like Samaria would be incredibly costly. It would take forever. So what does he do? He uses psychological warfare. He shoots off a letter to these officials and essentially says, look, you've got your master's sons, you've got chariots, horses, a fortified city, and weapons. So pick the best, most worthy of Ahab's sons, put him on the throne, and fight for your master's house. It's a bold move. By challenging them to pick a king and fight, he's forcing them to really calculate the cost of their loyalty to Ahab. He's trying to get them to turn on each other so he can avoid a long, drawn-out siege. And you know what? The terror these elders felt is captured perfectly in their response. They get this challenge, look at the odds, and say to themselves, if 2 kings could not resist him, how can we? They're talking about King Joram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah. Jehu had just struck both of them down with terrifying efficiency. So the intimidation tactic, it works flawlessly. The leaders of Samaria send a message straight back, submitting entirely. They promise they'll do whatever Jehu commands, and most importantly, they will not appoint a new king. Sensing their total surrender, Jehu sends a chilling second letter. He says, okay, if you're really on my side and you're going to obey me, take the heads of your master's sons and come to me in Jezreel by this time tomorrow. And wow, the leading men of the city do not hesitate. They take the royal princes, all 70 of them, slaughter them, pack their heads into baskets, and ship them off to Jehu. You see, in ancient Near Eastern times, presenting the heads of your rivals was the ultimate, undeniable proof that a coup was complete. 70 lives, the absolute core of Ahab's dynasty, snuffed out. And Jehu didn't even have to lift a sword or breach a single wall to make it happen. When those baskets arrive, Jehu orders the heads to be placed in 2 heaps right at the entrance of the city gate, leaving them there until morning. It is a massive public display of total dominance. The very next day, he steps out, stands before the people, and gives a public speech. He tells them, you are innocent. Yes, I conspired against my master and killed him, but who killed all these? Jehu is publicly declaring that while he acted against the king, the complete destruction of these 70 sons proves a higher power is at work here. He explicitly points out that the Lord has done exactly what he promised through the prophet Elijah. And, just to finish the job in Jezreel, Jehu strikes down everyone else connected to Ahab, his chief men, his close friends, and his priests. Section 3, Purging Allies and Relatives, which covers verses 12 through 17. So let's move into the next phase of this purge. Jehu finally leaves Jezreel and starts heading toward the capital city of Samaria. And as we'll see, his mission of elimination goes way beyond just the immediate sons of Ahab. It extends to anyone intertwined with that royal house. On his way there, he stops at a place called Beth-Eked of the Shepherds, which literally translates to the shearing house of the shepherds. Out of nowhere, Jehu runs into a royal entourage. He stops them, asks who they are, and they reply, "We're relatives of Ahaziah, and we've come down to greet the families of the king and of the queen mother." Now remember, Ahaziah was the king of Judah, but his family was tied by marriage to Ahab's house. These relatives are completely clueless. They have no idea a bloody revolution just happened. They don't even know the king and queen mother are already dead. Jehu's reaction is swift and absolutely ruthless. He tells his men, "Take them alive." That detail is so crucial. They aren't killed in the heat of battle. They are taken alive first. It shows this was a cold, calculated execution. All 42 of these men are captured and then systematically slaughtered right there by the well of Beth-Eked. Jehu leaves 0 survivors. He is severing literally every possible political and familial tie to the house of Ahab. He's making entirely sure his throne is secure and that his divine mandate is fully carried out. Immediately after this massacre, Jehu bumps into Jehonadab, son of Rechab, who is on his way to meet him. Now, Jehonadab was a highly respected guy, famous for his strict, faithful lifestyle and deep commitment to God. Jehu basically tests him, checking to see if Jehonadab's heart is with him. When Jehonadab confirms it is, Jehu reaches out his hand, pulls the man right up into his chariot, and drops this famous line, "Come with me and see my zeal for the Lord." By pulling Jehonadab into his chariot, Jehu is essentially securing a massive public endorsement from a top-tier religious figure. They ride together into Samaria, where Jehu proceeds to kill every last remaining member of Ahab's family in the capital. Section 4. The Fall of Baal, covering verses 18 through 28. Here is where things shift. The crucial point here is that Jehu doesn't just stop with wiping out Ahab's physical bloodline. He now turns his sights on the profound spiritual corruption that Ahab and Jezebel injected into the nation. We're about to see the total eradication of the national religion they sponsored. His target is the worship of Baal. If you're not familiar, Baal was a foreign fertility and storm deity that Ahab had heavily pushed throughout all of Israel. To root out this incredibly widespread cult, Jehu pulls off a massive deception. He calls all the people together and makes this shocking announcement. He says Ahab serves Baal a little, Jehu will serve him much. It's wild. By pretending to be an even more hardcore fanatic of this false god, he sets the ultimate trap to gather every single worshiper into one place. So Jehu rolls out this highly calculated 4-step deception. Step 1, he calls for a massive, mandatory assembly for Baal. He orders every single prophet, minister, and priest of Baal in Israel to show up, under the threat of death. And it works. The temple of Baal is absolutely packed wall to wall. Step 2, he orders special robes to be brought out for the worshippers. Now this isn't just about ceremony. He's color-coding his target so they're easily identifiable. Step 3, Jehu and Jehonadab personally sweep the temple to make absolutely sure there are no servants of the Lord inside. They only want Baal worshippers in there. And finally, step 4, he posts 80 heavily armed guards outside with one strict order: kill everyone inside. Let no one escape. Once the sacrifices are underway, the guards rush in and cut every single person down with the sword. But Jehu doesn't just stop at eliminating the people. He completely dismantles the infrastructure of their idolatry. His men drag out the sacred stone and burn it. They smash the temple of Baal down to its very foundations. And, just to guarantee this site can never, ever be considered holy ground again, they turn the ruins into a public latrine. As the text simply and powerfully states, thus Jehu destroyed Baal out of Israel. Section 5. Jehu's Mixed Legacy, covering verses 29 through 36. Now, despite this incredible display of zeal and his absolute military success, we enter the final phase of the chapter, and things get a bit complicated. We have to look at Jehu's severe spiritual shortcomings. This is where his story really shifts from a triumph into a cautionary tale. See, while Jehu was incredibly successful at wiping out the foreign worship of Baal, he totally failed to root out domestic idolatry. Verse 29 explicitly tells us he did not turn away from the sins of Jeroboam. What exactly were those? Well, years earlier, King Jeroboam had set up golden calves in the cities of Bethel and Dan. It was a purely political move, designed to keep the Israelites from traveling south to Jerusalem to worship at the true temple. It kept their loyalty locked up in the north. And Jehu? He clearly prioritizes his own political control over total obedience to God's law, because he just lets these golden calves remain. When we really weigh Jehu's legacy, we see this stark, glaring contrast. On one hand, look at his righteous actions. He perfectly executed God's judgment on Ahab's house, and he completely wiped out Baal worship. Because he did that, God actually praises him and promises that Jehu's descendants will sit on the throne of Israel for 4 generations. But then, look at his failures. The text plainly states that Jehu was not careful to keep the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He eradicated one form of idolatry, but completely tolerated another. And because of this partial obedience, there are massive, immediate national consequences. Verse 32 makes a point to note that in those days the Lord began to reduce the size of Israel. King Hazael of Aram attacks the Israelites on their borders, and he actually strips away huge chunks of territory east of the Jordan River, including key lands like Gilead and Bashan. So Jehu's reign, which started with such explosive power and clear divine backing, ends with a physically shrinking kingdom. Ultimately, he rests with his ancestors after reigning in Samaria for 28 years.
Section 6. Lessons and Chapter Recap. All right, we've covered a ton of intense historical ground today, walking step by step through a very heavy chapter. Let's summarize the simple, factual meaning of what we just explored and draw out some practical life lessons that we can actually apply to our own lives today.
Here's what you should really take away from all this. First, actions have undeniable consequences. Ahab and Jezebel's profound corruption resulted in the total, terrifying ruin of their family dynasty decades later. Second, raw zeal just isn't enough. Jehu was enthusiastic, energetic, and highly effective, sure, but his enthusiasm wasn't matched by an inward devotion to God's law. And finally, partial obedience is a trap. It's incredibly common for us to aggressively attack one bad habit or sin in our lives, kind of like Jehu destroying Baal, while comfortably ignoring or excusing another, like keeping those golden calves because they happen to serve our personal interests. That divided heart limited Jehu's potential, and it will absolutely limit ours too. It really makes you wonder, what golden calves might you be tolerating in your own life while you're only focusing on the obvious battles? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.